Hello my lovelies. In today's video I'm going to be working on this outfit for spring and making this 1940s style blouse. I'm going to show you how to pattern draft and sew the high puff sleeves, and I'm going to be using this really beautiful Pima cotton that I got from my local shop, Jacob's Haberdashery. It's a really beautiful cotton to sew with, and how lovely is this really pretty floral print. I'll be using Simplicity 8447 and adapting the blouse, and this is the one that I made earlier out of a lovely Liberty Tana lawn. There's a gathered yoke on the front, which is really lovely, but the thing I don't like is this vent on the back. It gives me this really strange tortoise looking hunchback, so you can see a little bit here, so I'm going to be removing that. And then the other amendment is to make a high puff sleeve like the one shown in this book, which I'll link below. It's such a good book. I'm using my semi-fitted sleeve block to create this high puff sleeve. First of all, draw around the block and make sure you have your central line there and transfer your notches, both your back and your front notches, onto the pattern paper. I don't know why I paused so long to decide how long I wanted the sleeve. I'm just eyeballing this, and then I'm taking it in at the hem a little bit, just so that it's not baggy around my bicep. Do this by measuring your actual bicep and making the appropriate alteration on your full scale pattern, because believe it or not, I'm not actually this small. And then I always do a sort of a squiggly line over the lines that are no longer correct, rather than rubbing them out. And then divide the sleeve into 4 sections. Using paper scissors, cut around the newly drafted sleeve. Here we are, it's all done. Get a fresh piece of pattern paper, draw that central line down so that you can balance your sleeve properly, and then you are going to, I'll just double check that it's there and double check that your notches are there, and then you are going to cut down those lines all the way to the hem, but you're going to leave a tiny little hinge at the bottom if possible, so that you don't have separate panels as such, everything's still in one. And you're going to be, this is the slash and spread method, so I've slashed and now I'm spreading, and you would measure the distance that you're going to spread in those sections, but again, just because this is quarter scale, I am eyeballing it, and then you tape it down or pin it. I would normally pin this actually in normal size, but I've just taped it. And then the book tells you to go up 4 centimetres at the sleeve head. So you do that, and then you draw back in your sleeve head, taking that new high sleeve head line back into the original armhole, sleeve head even. And that first line that where I'm just marking now, that will be notches, that's where you're going to gather when you actually sew your sleeve, and that creates the high puff, the puffiness, because we like a lot of puffiness, and because you've come up, it creates that higher puff. And then take off the pattern that you cut, and here is your new pattern, so just go over any lines, make it all look pretty, transfer all notches, all of those things, and then write on your notation. So I will do my gather line, this sort of wiggly line means gathering, and then I also write gather just in case I'm having an off day and I don't remember, and write the information on there, what the sleeve is, the size, how many you need to cut out, and so on. And then you are ready to sew. Incidentally, there is seam allowance already in the pattern. So here's the blouse all cut out. I did simply fold out that pleat and put the new line on the fold. And the first thing that you're going to do is do your gathering stitches. So I've done this on both yokes and on the sleeve heads. I'm doing it super fast because, you know, power of technology. Then gather up your yokes and pin them to the back shoulder seam and sew them in place. I'm sewing with a seam allowance of 1.5 centimetres as the pattern has instructed me to, and I'm always seem to use a stitch length of about 3, and then I overlock the yoke seams, and then I'm going to top stitch them in place just to make them look really nice, which is what I'm doing here. You can't really see it, but it just keeps the seam in place, and it's just a little detail that is lovely. And then once I've done that, I pin in my sleeve. So I've gathered up the sleeve head and then pinned it in place, and I always turn it through the right way just to double check that I'm happy with it. And here I am sewing the sleeves in, super speedy, always double checking that I'm happy with the gathering, and then overlock the seams. Next up is the collar, and I don't like using iron-on interfacing, so I've used calico and I've pinned my collar together. For some reason, I have no idea why, I didn't actually film the sewing the collar or anything, but here it is sewn, turned through, and I've pinned it onto the neckline, basted it in place. This blouse has a grown on facing, which is a simple and neat method of neatening your blouse. I'm neatening the edge of the facing by just doing a tiny little seam, because I am going to be hand stitching the facing in place. And then you basically pin the facing, capturing in, sandwiching in the collar and neckline, and when you turn it through, it's going to be really beautifully neat. I've overlocked the hem of the blouse, and I'm just going to bag out that facing bit at the bottom, and once I've turned it through, I can give it all a really good press, and I can turn up the hem and just top stitch that in place. Here's the blouse all done, other than the hand stitching, which will be a very pleasurable little bit of time, maybe watching a lovely film. And ta-da, here it is done. There's the plain back without the vent. No more tortoise for me. I'm wearing it with the 8447 trousers, which I love. I love the high puff. I feel very Joan Crawford in this blouse. Here's me giving you my best Joan Crawford. Thank you so much for spending time with me today while I sew my 1940s blouse. If you've enjoyed this and you love sewing and want to see more of my sewing adventures, click the subscribe and like this video. It's really lovely to have you along for the journey. See you next time, my lovelies.